All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here and joining us tonight for this discussion on kind of what's been going on in the forefront for many of us in our respective communities, our college campuses. We appreciate everybody joining us tonight. We have a lot of people from different parts of the country. We have some student athletes, we have some coaches, we have some people that are on college campuses, and those that are just here to join in on the conversation. So thanks again for everybody for being here. My name is Matt Elkin. I work with the Jewish Coaches Association, which many of you are a part of, but if you're not familiar, we are a group of coaches, administrators, directors, people in the sports world, specifically sports professionals. And our goal is to build our Jewish community within the sports world. We started about 20 years ago with college basketball, and we've expanded tremendously since then. We have over 750 people that currently get emails from myself and others, and we really just try to build that community. And especially since COVID, and especially since October 7th, we've really tried to find ways to keep our community connected year round and not just once a year at the Final Four. So as part of kind of what we try to do, we also are looking to add more opportunities like this to do Zoom calls, to share in the community, to provide education and resources for people. And we thought now was an extremely important time to do so, given what is going on within our country, and specifically on our college campuses, which many of you all are a part of. Before we move forward, I just wanted to let everybody know that tonight's session will be recorded. So there's a lot of people on tonight that may not want to have their picture being recorded, or may not want to have their name out there for whatever reason, and that's quite all right. So I would ask, if you don't want to have your picture on, please just turn your camera off, and feel free to, you can remove your name or however you'd like to do it. But we do have a lot of people that wanted to join that couldn't be here tonight. So I wanted to make sure that we'd be able to record it to send it out to everybody afterwards. And the last thing I wanted to say is, as we continue to grow the Jewish Coaches Association, like I mentioned, it's primarily started with a lot of college basketball coaches. Myself, I currently am working at Yale University with men's basketball, but we have some student athletes here that are from other sports. We have some coaches that are from other sports, and our goal in the future is to continue to grow the JCA to be including of all sports, of all genders, of all levels, international and here in the United States. So if you enjoy this conversation, if you think it's something that would benefit somebody in your network, someone that you're friends with, someone that you work with, please feel free to share. We currently have social media. We're on Instagram and on Twitter at Jewish Coaches. And we're also in the process of working towards creating a website. We do a lot to try to help people find jobs in the business, whether that's coaching jobs, athletic administration jobs, whatever we can do to support and hire other Jewish coaches and other Jewish sports professionals. And we also this year, for the first time, became an official 501c3 nonprofit organization, which means that we're able to start collecting donations, fundraising, and be able to provide more events besides our annual Jewish Coaches Breakfast, which we do at the Final Four every year. So that could be more Shabbat dinners, that could be more educational events, that could be networking. It could be a variety of things. We're hoping to run an event at NACDA coming up, which is for college athletic directors. We've had a lot of outreach from coaches in other sports, like I said, that want to run events and things. So we're really excited about the growth of the organization, and unfortunately, it comes at a time when we really need it. And so tonight's topic of discussion is really centered around what's going on our college campuses. Like I said, I'm at Yale University on the East Coast, but we have coaches everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast here tonight. And what I wanted to do to start this evening was introduce a couple student athletes that we have here on the call tonight. This is something that we haven't done in the past, is to include those that aren't working in the sports world as professionals, but I thought it would be really cool, and I thought it would be really helpful for some of the adults in the coaches and others on the call to hear from student athletes that are currently on these college campuses. And just real quick, I'll introduce you if you want to come up and speak. If you don't, you guys, of course, do not have to jump on, but I wanted to start off with Andrew. He's a student here at Yale on our men's football team. And I would love for Andrew, feel free to jump in and talk about kind of what you're doing here on campus, what your experience has been like, and then I'll send it over to the next guest. But just make sure your microphone should be on mute. So just make sure that you unmute yourself. If for whatever reason you can't do that, just let me know. And in the meantime, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Matt. First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you to Matt for organizing this. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Andrew Weiss. I'm a junior on the football team here at Yale, and I am president of the Jewish Student Athlete Coalition we have here at Yale. Just started up a couple months ago. My main focus was that we didn't see, an athlete coalition that supported Jewish athletes. There was a Black Student Athlete Coalition. There was Yale Women and Athletes, and there was a lot of coalitions for a lot of different groups on campus, but there was a lack of Jewish ones. So I went to the administration and I asked if this was possible. And so we started it, and we've been having meetings. We had a Passover Seder that we all went to. It's going in the right direction. We're growing right now. But just to speak specifically about, what my experience is on campus ever since October 7th, I believe that, anti-Semitism has been on a rise, an unsteady, unwavering rise. Before that I didn't really see before. But with these protests and the encampments that you see on campus, it's kind of scary to the Jewish students and specifically the Jewish student athletes that I've talked to in our coalition. And it's just kind of seems daunting. You see, some of your friends that you used to talk to that are in those protests, and you kind of feel like they're actively against you. So it's kind of a scary time to be on a college campus as a Jewish student. But we have a good group in the coalition. I think we're about 35 strong right now. From a variety of different sports. And yeah, we're just going to continue doing what we're doing, focusing on fostering a sense of community amongst the Jewish student athletes. And, that's all you can do. I think it's a great counter to what's going on campuses today. But thank you very much, Matt, for introducing me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Andrew, and thanks for sharing with us kind of about what's been going on here at Yale. Obviously, I can experience it myself, but coming from a student perspective, it's a lot different. So thank you for sharing that. Next, I wanted to toss it over to Josh. Josh, if you're willing and able to share with us, Josh Bernstein. He's a men's basketball player at Tufts University in Boston. He actually was with me on my Maccabi 18 and under team when we went to Israel a couple summers ago, and now he's been at Tufts, and I think Tufts has been one of the places that many of us have been aware that has kind of been hard. But I wanted to give Josh an opportunity to talk about his experience the last couple months.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it, Matt. It's nice that you're doing this, and it's nice to see some familiar faces. In all honesty, I really do think Andrew hit it on the head right there. I think it's seeing all these encampments, all these protests. I think Tufts has been a pretty big name in the news, especially since we're known as a pretty Jewish school. So to see all these encampments and to see nearly 1,000 kids on the academic quad protesting is pretty, like you said, is pretty daunting. And you really do see people that you used to be friends with. You see people in your classes, people you see out throughout nightlife, throughout weekends, and just in the dining hall. You see different people that you never realized were part of those protests, and it kind of changes things. And I think that's the craziest part, is that it kind of draws a line in what you used to think between people who are school friends and closer friends. You kind of start to separate that. And I think that's what's scary, is that for so long this was kind of like a safer campus for Jewish students. We're, I think, 25-30% Jewish, which is a huge amount of Jewish students on the college campus. So to see all of this, it's pretty scary. But we have a good group of people. We all have been going to Hillel. We host more events now at Hillel. I know, Matt, you're pretty close connected with Tufts Hillel, and so It's good to see we're doing events on Tuesdays now as well as Fridays, Saturdays, and we're adding one on Wednesday for next semester or next year rather. But it's good to do things like this, and I think a lot of my friends who are Jewish athletes, especially, we're kind of sorting to get connected all together from different campuses, which is nice. I know a bunch of the guys from the Maccabi team who wanted to be here. We've been in constant contact, so it's nice to be able to talk to other Jewish student athletes and see what their perspectives have been.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Josh. And like Josh was mentioning, a good friend of mine, Rafi Goldman, who's also a part of the JCA, his mom works at the Hillel at Tufts, and so she actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but you guys brought your whole team over with Coach Linton, and,
We
and you
did,
guys
yeah.
all came into an event.
Yeah, our coach has been a pretty big advocate for us. I think he's really pushing for all of us to feel inclusive. And so before October 7th, he was planning on doing an event where we brought our whole team to Hello, and then the dates didn't work out until it was after October 7th. So it was more impactful that way, but it was nice. We were all able to go. Actually, it was for a Tuesday dinner at one of those events. And we kind of sat with the entire Hello community, ate with them. We took some pictures, and it was good to just have some guys talk to people. We had some good food, and it was a good time. And I think it's something we're going to keep that going throughout the next semester. And I believe other teams like football is going to adopt that as well. And some other teams with larger Jewish presences are going to adopt that.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Josh. Appreciate it. One more person that I just wanted to give an opportunity to speak and give a shout out to is Benny. Benny's at Stanford. He's on the men's basketball team. Benny was also with us in Israel, but he was in the older group in the open division. But Benny has a different perspective, being on a different coast at a different school, but also, another example of some of these really high achieving, high academic universities that are experiencing some of the worst instances of what students are going through. So Benny, if you want, feel free to unmute yourself and just let us know kind of a little bit about what you've been seeing at Stanford.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for setting this up. Yeah, it hasn't been too bad over here. There's some encampments, but something I've noticed, at least that I'm aware of, or I'm trying to do, is just talk with people, have open conversations like we're doing now, making sure I'm talking to my Jewish friends and people, just anyone, just having conversations. I feel like right now during these times, like it's very tense and people maybe you're trying to avoid conversation or, I think you can disagree conversation, but yeah, just talking to people. This is like a perfect time to come together. I've been talking to a lot of Jewish athletes, staying close, giving them a space to talk. It hasn't been too bad over here. The protests haven't been terrible like other schools, which I'm very fortunate about. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate just seeing all these faces and just knowing we have a strong community behind us, and things are on the up.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Benny. I appreciate it, man. And yeah, I think like to his point, just the conversations that all of us are having right now, whether it's within our group, but also like Benny said, talking to non-Jewish athletes, talking to non-Jewish friends, people that are in our communities that we all care about, and just try to make sure that they know how we feel and be willing to have those conversations. I think it's really important. So I wanted to, I got a message here from Lenny Gold, and I don't know, Lenny, if you want to speak up and share with the group what kind of you've been working on, if you're interested, and we'd love to hear kind of some of the latest stuff that's been going on your end.
Sure, thanks, Matt. I've been in production on a documentary film about campus anti-Semitism since actually July of 2021. We shot some footage then and then had hit pause for about a year and picked up again in September of 2022. And we were about over 95% completed when October 7th happened. We've conducted interviews on 10 different campuses across the country, public schools as well as private schools, and met, I guess, about 36 and interviewed about 36 students and more than a dozen adults who are helping them in various ways, including lawyers, journalists, public officials, elected officials. It's been quite a journey. And we've learned quite a bit. I'm expecting a rough cut any day. We're expecting to be out and released in the fall and start scheduling screenings. So I'm receptive to any schools represented here who would be interested in having a screening. And I had just messaged you, Matt, as you saw, with a question of whether any of the student athletes on the call here have experienced anti-Semitism from any teammates or coaches, and how they've handled that problem. And I'd be happy to answer any questions from them about, how best they might be able to handle that kind of problem, because that's one of the things that has come up quite a bit among everyone that we've interviewed for the film.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think it's a really, really cool project that you were working on. I know I was talking to Ethan a lot about it too. And so hopefully if anybody's interested, I can make sure you guys all, or Lenny, if you want to put your email in the chat or something, people can reach out to you, and I'm sure be happy to kind of follow up with that. And so I want to ask one more coach to speak. He's not able to put his camera on at the moment, but his name is Dan Marks. He's in the Washington, D.C. area. He's been a big supporter of the JCA. He's also kind of done some other initiatives with scouting and scavenging, and is currently at Howard University in D.C. But he and I were talking prior to this, and I just wanted to give Dan a chance to kind of speak about what he's experienced as a coach and in Washington, D.C. around some college campuses. So Dan, if you can hear us and you want to turn your microphone on, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for organizing this and letting me speak. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting, so Howard University is an HBCU, so the number of Jewish people on campus is very limited. I don't think there's any Jewish students that I'm aware of. The head volleyball coach here is actually Jewish. Myself and, I'm sure there's some professors and people in the administration, but protests have been kind of relatively tame. There's currently like one tent and two small tents on our main campus yard, but it's pretty civil and not super threatening by any stretch. So it hasn't, I think, kind of overtaken the campus. There was one instance where there was a career fair in February, and there was companies there that had offices in Israel, and that drew a bit of a firestorm, and they were protesting that they were having Zionist companies wanting to hire students. So that was definitely kind of an interesting, thing. And a lot of those companies, like Intel, I think, and Apple, it's like, people are using those devices and those systems kind of every day on a college campus, but aren't necessarily aware of it. And was able, went over to GW to have dinner over by there, and just kind of was curious what the encampment looked like over there. And it was very like almost dystopian, a lot of like, signs like no Zionists allowed, don't speak to the media if you're not trained, no outsiders, resistance, intifada revolution. Like there wasn't any like chanting going on, and I kind of walked through freely and nobody really bothered me. But there was like all those phrases either written on the sidewalks or hung from like poles. So it was definitely, kind of crazy. I think it's I'm in a group chat with two very close friends who are both actually on this call. Neither of them are Jewish. We all kind of follow politics, all have very different, you opinions on a variety of things, but kind of able to talk civilly about, issues and have disagreements without it bleeding over or affecting our friendship. And, one of my friends pointed out, on Tuesday, when Biden made his remarks about, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, amplifying sometimes positive messages of people standing with Jewish people and against anti-Semitism, as opposed to always amplifying the negative messages that we see. And, obviously yesterday with the announcement about cutting off, aid, it kind of got complicated and it's a very nuanced subject, and there's a lot. I think that we could learn from just having conversations with people who we disagree with. And I think the most disheartening thing about what I'm seeing on college campuses is the people who are very anti-Semitic or anti-Israel aren't even willing to have civil conversations and try to hear another perspective. So that's, to me, what I think the country lacks right now, and you're seeing it especially on college campuses.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate your insight, and I want to invite one more person to speak before we move on kind of to the next segment of our discussion. So the last person I just wanted to introduce is Howard Levy. Howard is a head coach at the college level and is also a Princeton alum and played basketball at Princeton and has been very active, him and his family, in kind of everything that's been going on there at Princeton. So I would love for Howie to take a chance to just speak about what he's been going through and experiencing, and then we'll move on to the next part of our discussion.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, everybody. So many friends and familiar faces here. So just a quick sort of summary of what we've been seeing in Princeton. After a month ago, we were in Israel, where we were sort of participating in, my wife Reva is Israeli, participating in some of the protests to free the hostages and kind of against the government over in Israel. But you get here in Princeton and they have a fairly good sized encampment. And if I, I'm 6'10", so I'm not sort of feeling intimidated, but I could see how it's very intimidating for students. And once it got started, my wife gathered a few local Israelis and Jewish folks, and we went and stood outside their encampments and just were holding up photos of the hostages and didn't say a word unless we were spoken to. But it seemed like after we were there for a little bit, the leaders of this protest, and many of whom are not students at the school, but made it clear that they were not to interact with us, and just sort of not to draw a little humor out of this, but while the speakers were going on, where I was standing, I was kind of in the line of the cameras and things, and a few students carrying a Palestinian flag tried to block me, which just led me to hold my pictures higher, and I intentionally chose photos of a 4-year-old Israeli boy and also a Muslim man, so I just kept holding my pictures up higher and moving left when they moved right. Part of this was, I said, no one's going to beat me at an immature game. It's been fairly disturbing, and we've noticed that it's moved to the high school in our town, and even there's a group in Princeton called Not in Our Town that's, their supposed mission is anti-racism, anti-white supremacy. And shortly after October 7th, I asked them, I sent a note to one of the members asking them if they were going to say anything to condemn October 7th. And this was before even Israel attacked. And they said that we do not get involved in international events. And they made a real point to say that that's not part of their mission. However, the last couple of days, they've been promoting events inside the encampment, and just really disheartening to see that, and disheartening to see professors whose job it is to teach students to think and consider both sides of issues, saying things that they know are sort of not fact-based. So it's been disturbing, and actually in some ways much more comfortable last month when we were in Israel. So that's a story from Princeton.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate you sharing that with us. And Howard, I don't know if you have it handy, but the article that was published, if you have it and you're able to throw it in the chat, I'm sure some people would love to to check it out. There's a really good article that Howard was in and was featured in, and talking about kind of some of the things he was discussing earlier. So appreciate everybody for sharing, and I hope we'll have some more opportunity before we finish here to jump into some more open discussion. But before that, I do want to introduce a special guest that we have here today with us. It's Dr. Stacy Gallen. She works for the Ference Institute, and she's also the founder and the leader of the Athletes Against Anti-Semitism and Discrimination consortium that some of us that are on this call are a part of. And she's done some really just incredible work with Jewish and non-Jewish coaches, student athletes across the board. And so I wanted to give her a chance to talk to everybody here, speak about some of the things that she's been working with on a daily basis, some of the stories and experiences that she has, and then also just give her an opportunity to kind of maybe help us deal with what's going on and give us some tools and resources to potentially help us, those of us that are on college campuses moving forward. So Dr. Gallen, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for having me. And thank you to everyone for being here. This is a very difficult time for everyone. And I think, just being able to come together like this, I think is fantastic. It's a great way to be here. It's a great way to support each other. And it's something that's really needed. So I am the founding director of the Ference Institute for Ethics, Human Rights, and the Holocaust. And we really started working with athletes back in 2018 when we took the Davidson College basketball team to Auschwitz, along with Eva Moses-Core, who was a tremendous, tremendous person. She was a friend. She was a mentor. She was an inspiration. And she was a survivor of the Holocaust and of Joseph Mengele's twin experiments. And every year she used to take 100 people back to Auschwitz, and she would walk them through. She would walk them through everything, everywhere that she had been. She would talk to them about what it was like. And when we had the opportunity, there was going to be a camera crew filming her. And we said, we have to do something. We have to do something to make sure that her message gets to more people. Obviously, we knew she was 84 at the time. We knew that survivors weren't going to be around forever. We said, well, what can we do? How can we amplify her message? And we decided that the best way to do that was through young athletes, because young athletes have such a platform and they have a way to connect with the next generation. And at that time, obviously, anti-Semitism was on the rise, and so was Holocaust denial and distortion, which obviously the two are connected. So that's what we did. So we took the Davidson team along with Coach Bob McKillop, who I'm hoping is going to be able to maybe join us on this call for a few minutes. He has a Hall of Fame dinner down at Davidson tonight. And I have to tell you, it was a transformative experience for the students, the student athletes, but for me to just watch these kids and see how it impacted them. There was not one Jewish student who was on this trip, but every one of them left there a different person, understanding that anti-Semitism is real, that anti-Semitism is a problem, that it is something that impacts everybody, that the Holocaust is something they need to learn about, they need to learn the lessons, and they need to apply it in their lives. And they all went on and they took these lessons and they did something with them to make the world a better place. I continue to work very closely with Coach McKillop, with Davidson, with the student athletes. And we continue to be very concerned about the rise in anti-Semitism. So we started Athletes Against Anti-Semitism and Discrimination in July of this past summer. Most people assume we started this after October 7th. We did not. And the purpose when we founded this was to create innovative programs that help educate and empower athlete activists to use their platform to shape conversations and enhance relationships between the university and the community. And I look back at that now, and I know that we wrote that mission in the summer, but it seems more important now than ever, because athletics has a platform to help raise awareness about important events and students. And I'm listening to you students who are talking tonight, and thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience. And I'm hearing you talk, and I can hear that, you're part of a special group, and everybody here is part of a special group, and it's a community, and you're close knit. And that means that, there are things that we can do for each other, and there are things that we can do for the community. And sometimes that means that it's time to activate that community. And I think now is one of those times. I remember right after October 7th happened, I have two children. One of them is a freshman in high school. And I would be doing work, and he would come in every few minutes and tell me, Mom, this athlete, this is what he had to say about October 7th. And this athlete, this is what he had to say. And I mean, I'm his mom, so I hope that maybe he got his factual knowledge from me. But there's lots of other kids out there that are, they're following these athletes, and they're following what they have to say. They look up to the athletic community. And so, not to quote a line from Spider-Man, but yes, I'm going to, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's what we need to do. Except that right now, all of us are in the midst of a crisis, right? And we're all hurting. And I'm listening to all of your stories, and you're in different places, but you're going through the same thing. And so most of my career, I've spent, sometimes I'm giving academic lectures, or sometimes I'm giving community lectures. At this point, 100%, I'm focused on the kids, right? I'm focused on the students, because Andrew and Josh and Benny and anybody else who's here that I'm missing, you didn't ask for this. You did not ask to be put on the front lines of this fight. You're at a point in your life where you're still trying to figure out who you are. And, developmentally, that's hard enough as it is. But now it's like when you're dealing with a bully, right? Let the bully come to me. I have the facts, I have the experience, I have the education. I am more than happy that I chose for a career to fight this fight, but you didn't. So it's our job as the grown-ups in the room to provide you with the support that you need. And that's what we want to do. And that's what we're here to do, is to help you. We're all here to support you. So that's what I want to tell you. The first thing is the purpose of this call right now, and the purpose, all of us here, and I hope it's okay that I'm speaking for everybody else on the call, is to provide support for you, because I can't imagine how hard it must be every day to walk through that. And I can't imagine what you all said. I can't imagine how hard it must be to see people who you were friends with in those encampments and in those protests. So to the extent that we can, whatever we can do for you, we're here for you. But I also know that I spoke to someone on this call earlier today, and he told me a story about his commencement ceremony. And he told me a story of something that took place at his commencement story. And he said he'd never been as upset as he was that day. And he didn't know what to do, because he didn't wake up that morning and think that he was going to have to deal with this, because it's hard for all of us. And none of us know how to deal with it, because there's no playbook, pun intended, there's no playbook for dealing with this. October 7th was the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. We didn't even know what was coming next. We did not know that we were going to have to deal with this. And I'm more than happy to share the article that I wrote and published last Friday, and the interview that I did on Forbes TV this past Monday about the failure at the top, at the highest levels of higher education in these elite universities, and how I think that really set the tone that has trickled down in these institutions, and how I think that's really kind of what caused it. And whether or not it comes from a personal place of anti-Semitism, it doesn't matter. If you say that calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, it depends what the context is as to whether or not that violates the code of conduct at your university. It doesn't matter if that comes from a personal place of anti-Semitism. That's anti-Semitism, right? So what we're seeing on campus 100% is the worst anti-Semitism since the Holocaust. And as adults, we're struggling with how to deal with it. So what we need to do at this specific moment in time is we need to provide a space to discuss what's happening on the college campuses and share your experiences, because we need to make sure we're okay. We need to take care of each other, right? And we need to be able to take care of our students. That is our number one job right now. because we can't fight the fight if we're not okay. So we need to have spaces like this so we can have these conversations. We need education, because when these students come up to you, right? If you are somebody, let's say you're walking past the protest, let's say you're a student, or let's say you're anybody, right? And someone comes up to you and says something, you need the educational tools to be able to properly respond. I was teaching some high schoolers, which, by the way, I didn't used to, but now I do, because they need help also. Because these kids have no knowledge of the situation. And yet they're dealing with anti-Semitism. And it's like Howie was saying before, right? It's hitting people at levels we haven't seen before, ages we haven't seen before, communities we haven't seen before. So on the first day, we created a Standing Up to Anti-Semitism seminar, 5 sessions. And on the first day, one of the students was talking about his experience with anti-Semitism. And I said, well, what do you do in that situation? And the other kid said, I think you should have punched him in the face. I said, well, best idea, because that's self-destructive. It's going to wind up being a problem for you. But he genuinely had no other option at that point. He did not know how else to handle this situation. So we need to make sure we have educational resources, right? Because, I mean, honestly, how many people on this call were genuinely knowledgeable enough to be able to come back with like real answers to some of the situations that are happening? I honestly was not. My specialty was more like the Holocaust and ethics. I had to get up to speed really, really quickly. All right. So after this call tomorrow, Matt's going to send out some resources that we have so that you can feel more educated and more confident if you find yourself in a conversation. Because I think it was Benny who said it's really important to be able to have these conversations with people. The problem is you need to be able to have them in a respectful manner. And that is something that unfortunately we're not really able to have right now. But to the extent that you can, if you can have a respectful conversation and you can say to somebody, actually, that's not correct. Here's actually what the situation is. You can back it up with facts. That's fantastic. All right. So we need to be able to take care of each other. We need to be able to provide support for each other at all the levels, right? If you're a coach, if you're an administrator, if you're an AD, whatever it is, we need to be able to support you, and we need to be able to support our students. We need to be able to support our student athletes. So right now, at this moment in time, on May 9th, these are the most important tasks that we're facing. But as I said before, athletes have a platform, and it's something that if we harness it, we can really make a difference. So moving forward, when this immediate crisis passes, okay, and I'm not saying by no stretch of the imagination do I think that we're going to wake up in 2 months and everything's going to be great. But when we get through this part, right, when you go home for the summer, when you're not on your campus for the summer, that's the time that we need to regroup and need to think about what is our strategy. So I think the third thing to me is to figure out what is our action plan as we move forward into the summer months to leverage the platform of athletics to affect change at a policy level. You hear the people that are in the encampments and they're making demands. I can't tell you well, we're having meetings. We hear the demands that we're making. We're trying to negotiate. Okay, first of all, I cannot tell you how much I disagree with that, right? Because for obvious reasons, right? Again, it's all in my article. I'll send you the article. But why can't we actually have a productive conversation about the safety of our students? Because if you're an administrator in higher education, you have 2 jobs. Your first job is to keep the students safe, and your second job is to educate them. You cannot educate them if you cannot keep them safe. You are not keeping them safe right now. Okay. And when you have, whether it's the students who are demonstrating or people who aren't students, why are there people who aren't students on your campus causing these types of, safety hazards? So that's an issue also. So if we're going to have negotiations and we're going to demands from these people, okay, well, why don't we talk? All right. Why don't we come up with some policy changes? Maybe that we have some suggestions. I don't think it's a bad idea. Again, I'm speaking obviously with a lot of passion right now, but I think it's important that we take that passion and we put it together in a respectful way, backed by facts, and we take it and we put it forward to your universities. There's a lot of us here. We represent a lot of different places. If we work together, we can make a difference. So that's where I think personally we need to go. I don't want to talk for too long because, like I said, immediate right at this moment, My number one concern is to make sure that all of you have a place where you can talk and you can express what you're going through, and other people can provide support. So I would like to, I think, 9 o'clock is a good time to end this call. And so I want you to use these last, 15, 20 minutes to be able to do that. But moving forward, that is my suggestion, is that we work together over the next few months to try and figure out, what do we do? What are our demands? And how can we move forward in a respectful, productive way?
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I would highly encourage, like she said, there's so many different schools and people represented here on this call tonight, and so many other people that will be joining and listening in afterwards. So just really happy to have such a great variety of people here, and from different, I see people from professional organizations, I see parents, students, coaches, you name it. So I really wanted to just take the last, few minutes tonight to open up the floor to really anybody. It's an open forum. If anybody wants to share about what they've experienced in their neighborhood and their campus, if anybody has any questions for any of us, please, this is an open forum. Feel free to unmute yourself or write in the chat. We'd love to have a discussion. So if anybody would like to jump on, please, by all means, feel free.
Hey, Matt, I'm happy to go. This is Ryan Marks. For those who don't know me, I'm the head coach at University of St. Francis. We're a NAI school just outside Chicago, Franciscan Catholic school of about enrollment of about 1,500. I was waiting to go later, but I'm glad. So Stacy kind of referenced the conversation that we had earlier today. And this is just kind of shows you like the different types of scenarios that can come up now that I guess we all have to be more prepared for. We had graduation on Saturday. We have very, very few Jewish people on our campus, but I have 2 Israelis on my team, one that was graduating and had 9 friends and family members at our graduation on Saturday. Every function I've ever been at St. Francis has always started with a Catholic or a Franciscan prayer. The ceremony starts, and a Palestinian American student is brought up to give the opening prayer. Speaks in Arabic mostly, references the Quran, finishes asking for peace in Palestine, Gaza, the Congo, and a couple other places. I was just sort of completely taken aback by the whole thing and angry, probably exclaimed a few things too loud. And then I just told my athletic director I'm leaving. So I got up and walked out, trying to look like I was going to the washroom, not, being a little bit discreet. Went up to my office, texted my athletic director, told him, hey, I know you're not responsible for this, but this is totally inappropriate for the university and for a graduation ceremony. I want to talk to the president before I leave campus. I want an apology to our Israeli students. And then I texted and WhatsApped with them. They were disappointed, but probably less mad than I was. This resulted in, after the graduation, me having a meeting. The president agreed that he would speak with me, but the person who was in charge of the speech was one of the sisters on our campus. And without belaboring you guys too long, really like 2 things. One, this was kind of amazing, but the speaker was selected because she had won a particular award on campus, and it never struck the sister that there might be an issue. Like, she had proofread this speech before it was given. And in this case, it was really like truly not ill-intended, but like completely having like a total lack of understanding of what was going on, particularly like all week, the news in Chicago, obviously the national news, but University of Chicago, DePaul, Northwestern have been in the forefront of everything here. And our people literally, and the one person who okayed this speech didn't really understand the ramifications of it. And so, well, I'm not so sure that I was the best person to be in that room educating her. I was the Jewish person on campus and the Jewish coach with the Jewish player that, was sort of in a situation that I had to do, felt like I had to do something, and did the best I could to advocate. And they were really apologetic, and I'm still not sure that a couple of the people really understand it, but that's the burden that we're carrying now is to educate a lot of people that really don't understand these issues, or how supporting or putting certain people forward, in essence, are anti-Semitic by what wasn't said that day, which was no reference to Israel, no reference to the hostages, and those types of things. So that was my Saturday.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And sorry you had to deal with that, and especially for your players. I'm sure many of you guys are experiencing other situations of this monumental time in these young people's lives that are getting ruined or whatever, impacted by such things, protests or stuff like that. So does anybody else have anything that they would like to add or contribute in the last 5 or 10 minutes that we're here? Would love to hear from 1 or 2 more people if anybody cares to share.
Hey, Matt, it's David Seisler. How are you?
What's up, Dave?
I would love to just go back to the student athletes and just I'm trying to understand how are they keeping their calm on their campuses, and how are they managing their emotions, like as athletes, as competitors, as everything that they stand for. I'm amazed by the folks that you've had speak at the beginning of the call. I'd love to hear from them again on how they're managing their emotions and not trying to do more when they know they can. Like I can sense that. Love to hear from them again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Andrew or Benny or Josh, do either of you guys have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can hop in here. Yeah, it's frustrating seeing all this, and something good about being Jewish is you're not that noticeable being Jewish or not. So they're not personally coming after me and attacking me, but every time I see that there's a new kind of protest, it's like the first one, we have a main plaza at Yale. It's called Beinecke, and they had this movement, Occupy Beinecke. It's an historic movement. They've done it since the 1970s for protesting whatever cause they were supporting at that time. And they were occupying there, and then the Schwartzman Center, which is one of our main halls on campus, and then they were going in the street and cross campus and everywhere. And it's unfortunate. I would come and check it out, and there would be literature and paintings and such that were directly against Jews and Zionists, and it was anti-Semitic. There was one that was honoring a terrorist who murdered a 19-year-old and who spent the rest of his life in Israeli jail, and they were parading him and celebrating him, and it was really unfortunate to see. But yeah, I usually just give a ring to my dad or my mom and tell them what's going on, and ask for advice and ask for what to do. But yeah, it's kind of intimidating and depressing, honestly, to see how many people are for this cause, but also uneducated on this cause. So
I can add as well. I think Andrew hit it well, and another good thing about being Jewish is you're often not alone. So I can speak personally for myself. I have 17 teammates. I'm the only Jew on my team at Tufts, but I would say that all 17 are as advocating for Jewish life on Tufts as I am, and so it's really cool to see as much as we've talked about all the bad things and how you see so many people that in these encampments, and it really changes friendships. You also see certain friends that you have that are growing to become even closer to you, and people who are more similarly aligned to you, which is great to see in that sense. And so seeing the love and support I get more specifically from my head coach, from my 2 assistants, weekly check-ins, friends across the country that I'm being reunited with just because we're Jewish. In that sense, it allows kind of our community to almost grow in a sense, because we're able to feel more connected now in a time where connection is so important.
Thanks a lot for sharing, Josh. And yeah, I mean, I can't speak for Andrew and Josh, but I'm sure being a beast football player in a damn near 7-footer on campus too, like Howie was saying, helps a little bit. But certainly, none of you guys should have to use your size as a way to defend yourself. But it definitely doesn't hurt. So We have a couple people raising their hands. Let's go to Miles. Miles, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to jump on.
Yeah, I am recorded, but I don't care. So I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Princeton University. And I think David Levy had put in the information on what is this compared to the student athletes and in regards to other individuals that are on campus. And the first thing I'll say is that there has been a sense of these Jewish student athletes that I know are trying to figure out how to even navigate this space. And this has been since October the 7th. So one thing that I've done is first educate myself. And I think the biggest thing is I'm an ally, trying to grow as an advocate. But my mentor has been extremely huge for me in this space. He's on this call, Howard Levy. Sorry to give you your flowers right now, but when things happened in 2020, he was the first one by my side, being present for me as an ally and an advocate. And in full transparency, it was tough for me to see when this space happens on October the 7th, that it wasn't vice versa. And the stance of having connectiveness to this space for individuals that are in my community, the Black community, to not see the same uproar for forms of oppression as he was there presented for me. So I think in that time, it was a hurtful thing for me to see being in that space. And then I think the biggest thing for me was, how do I help and support Jewish student athletes? And as one of the student athletes, I don't know who's Jewish. So I had to lean on other Jewish individuals to help me find this space and help me find these individuals. And the one thing that I did was, how do we figure out how to have an affinity group? And how do we recognize that infinity group? So there is not a brave space or safe space. I call it circles of trust, where Jewish student athletes can come together and have a space where they're collectively having these options. Because I can say something in regards to programming and things we should do, and sometimes even my voice isn't loud enough. But if student athletes come together, I always see that their voices are a little bit louder than even the traditional students that are on campus. The struggle is that they're competing at a high level. So they're trying to navigate, how do I communicate in this space without taking away from the competitive nature of my team? And also trying to figure out, I thought individuals were my friends, but now there's a different stance. So how do I even navigate that space as well? So all of these things are coming with a sense of emotion. And Stacy made a great point. Resources, 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 and more resources. How do I, as a staff member, actually point our student athletes to these resources on campus? So for me, rather than just researching, I connected with both of our rabbis, Rabbi Ira and Rabbi Gil. And I went to them and said, okay, how do we do collaborations for our student athletes in order for this to work? How do I build a relationship with you in order for me to educate myself in this space? And how do I form some form of connectiveness for our student athletes? And I saw my coach and mentor stand up in a space where people say you can't be silent. So I'm like, okay, I have to resemble the same thing in a space where I am the only and I am the ally. I'm not Jewish, I'm not Israeli, but I think if I'm an ally, that helps out so much more in being in that space. First shout out to that. And then the biggest thing is, I'm also an individual who's still learning. How do I grow without you teaching me, but me saying, hey, listen, this is what you need to do. And me focusing on and putting my biases aside and trying to figure out the best way to form a connective relationship in order for me to see the empathetic pieces of any Israeli or Jewish community members. So that is my take on that. I will say that our student athletes are trying to navigate this space, and they aren't as transparent as the traditional students on campus. So my goal is, how do I put that to the test and help them to utilize their voices just as individuals utilize their voices before? How do I help them utilize their voice in this space in order for you to see transition in policy? So thank you for allowing me the time to talk.
Thank you, Miles. Really, really appreciate it. That is exactly what the point of tonight's call was to have so many different perspectives from different people, and just really appreciate your support, Miles, your allyship. It means a lot to our students, I can only imagine, and to those that you've had a chance to impact with that. So we really, really appreciate that. And before we get to Joseph, hang on, I wanted to introduce, we do have a special guest who just joined us, Coach Bob McKillop, legendary coach from Davidson, who Dr. Gallen mentioned earlier, took an incredible experiential trip to Auschwitz. And I wanted to just give Coach McKillop a few minutes to speak to us and any comments that he has. And we really appreciate him being on with us tonight. Go ahead, Coach.
Well, Matt, thank you for doing this, and so grateful to all of you for being part of this call. I'm an Irish Catholic guy from Queens, New York. What am I doing on a call like this? Well, growing up in Queens, New York, the neighborhood was mixed. I knew Jewish guys. I played at the parks with them. They were no different. And then I go through college. I went to Hofstra University for my last 3 years, and there was a significant Jewish presence there as well. I was educated. I was aware. I saw a common bond that existed between myself and they're human beings. There was respect. There was no difference. They went to temple. I went to church. I mean, that was the only difference. But we competed on the playgrounds, the schoolyards. We walked to school. We rode a bus. We hung out in bars. We walked the streets. There's nothing different. And I think the brush that is being used today is the same brush that has been going on for centuries, and not just what happened in Nazi Germany, but it's been going on for centuries. And the only way to change it is to educate. And we're a microcosm, Davidson College, but I had the fortune, because of Stacy and because of Amanda Caleb, to take a group of our players to Auschwitz, and it changed their feelings dramatically about not so much that there was any anti-Semitism amongst them, but an awareness of anti-Semitism. And that to me was a defining moment as an educator, as a leader, as a coach, that just educate people, let them understand what this is all about, what happens. And my goodness gracious, those guys that were part of that experience, to this day, I'm sure they're waving a banner for the Israelis, the Jewish people, and what's going on, and they're very opposed to the anti-Semitism that is just flourishing throughout our country and throughout our world.
Thank you so much, Coach. And like I said with Miles, just to have you, knowing that you're not a Jewish person, but you are an ally, is so important for us. And we really greatly appreciate you joining us tonight and sharing that with us. So thank you so much, Coach.
Well, delighted to be with you, Matt. Thank you.
So I wanted to just, one last speaker that we had, Joseph Klein, would love to give him the last word and speak up, and then we'll wrap up tonight's call after that. Go ahead, Joe.
So I'm more of a question for the student athletes or people in the athletic departments at certain schools. How, if I have a colleague at a company I work at and they're on the other side of this topic, I have trouble viewing that person the same. So how do you work with that person on a day-to-day basis, kind of like it's normal if you have a teammate or someone in the athletic department that you know is on the opposite side of this topic?
Great question. Anybody care to speak on that? Student athletes or adults?
You can't stop hate by sitting on the sideline and staying quiet. You have to stand up to hate. You have to stand up to ignorance. So be proud of who you are. Stand up for the things that you believe in. Speak articulately and openly and honestly. And don't be afraid to say when you don't know something. We live in a very diverse society. We work every day as basketball coaches and in the athletic departments with student athletes from a variety of ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds. People grew up with one parent, with two parents, raised by a grandparent, all sorts of things. And the only way a team is successful is when everybody brings their self into that huddle and into that locker room, and you take that and we go out and find a way to win together, right? And so I think it's really, really important to bring people together. And the way you do that is when people are saying hateful, mean things that separate us and divide us, which is what is going on right now, is you can't stay silent and sit on the sideline. You have to stand up to that, and you have to speak out and bring people together and talk in positive terms about the things that unite us, not divide us.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Anyone else? David, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, if I could, I wanted to address the issue. I happen to work with a gentleman who is Muslim, and his ex-wife, who he's still very close with, is Palestinian. Her parents were born in Beirut, and her grandparents were in Jerusalem during the 40s, and obviously were forced out. So they call the things that we call the independent state of Nakba. And I've had to work with him every day since October 7th and for years. And one of the toughest conversations I had was on October 8th, when we just couldn't avoid the news and we were talking about what happened. And I confronted it directly, and we wound up having a really great conversation. And we got to that great point of where we agreed to disagree, but it wasn't antagonistic. It was more asking questions of each other and trying to understand where we came from. And now the fact of the matter is we avoid the topic 100% right now, but it's only after that context of us finding that kind of common ground of what we did agree on. And we agreed on, I'd say, probably 98 of 100 topics, but there was a couple that we obviously did not agree on. And I think we both kind of look back on that, and we're very, very proud of each other, and it helped deepen our relationship. And I don't know what would have happened if we would have tried to avoid it, because then something would have maybe come out in conversation. So as others have said, you got to find your way to stand up, but sometimes standing up is just asking questions and getting some understanding about the people who you're working with.
Thanks a lot, David. Yeah, and I would just also quickly add, I had a conversation with a former student athlete of ours here at Yale who saw that I was posting things in support of Israel and whatnot, and he was posting things in support of Palestine, and he reached out to me and just wanted to have a conversation, and he wanted to ask, why do I think these certain things? And I gave him the opportunity to say why he thought his things. And as a Muslim and a Jew, like kind of what David was saying, like we just kind of agreed to disagree on certain aspects of the conversation. But the point is, he knew that I was willing to hear him out, and knew that as a former coach of his and somebody that cares about him, like I wanted him to be able to feel like he could trust me and confide in me and have support, whether or not I agreed with what he was saying or whatever. I wasn't going to allow that to change the way that I felt about him and what he meant to me as a former player of mine. And so I think it's important to have those conversations, and hopefully, with some of the information that we've shared here tonight, each of you guys feel like you have some tools or just at least some shared community that we can all kind of have together. And I hope to follow up after this call tonight with some more information and specifics about what we can do to continue moving forward. And also just want to close tonight by thanking everybody that's been on the call tonight. It's been really special. Thank you to the student athletes. Thank you to the coaches, everybody else that was joining in. And just know that we, the Jewish Coaches Association, and everybody here on this call, and those that aren't able to be here on this call, we are all here to support you guys, you students, and each other. So please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to any of us. We really want to help and support, and just know that this is not something that we take lightly and something that we can't do on our own. And so we really are excited to continue to have more opportunities to speak, be an outlet for those of you to join in conversation and share what's going on, and hopefully be able to get to a point on our college campuses, in our communities, and in the world where we do not have to face the anti-Semitism and discrimination that we've been facing as a Jewish people and beyond, moving forward. So once again, thank you guys very much for being here, and hopefully we have a chance to reconvene here again soon. But if you're interested in anything else that we're doing with the Jewish Coaches Association, you can follow us at Jewish Coaches. We're on Instagram and on Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me via email. I'll put my email here in the chat right now. So if anybody has any questions, if they want to reach out, feel free to hit me up. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a great rest of the night. Be safe, be well. Good luck to those of you finishing up final exams, and just wish everybody a safe and happy rest of the week. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it.
Hey, Matt, one thing could I finish with?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Coach.
You know, we could talk all about communicating, and we could talk all about hearing one side and the other side. We could read it in a history book, we could see it in a Hollywood movie, but until we get to a place like Auschwitz and Birkenau and Dachau and see what went on, it's not going to impact us the way it should impact us, and it needs to impact us. And with all this money floating around with NIL and all this TV money, if colleges can't do what Davidson did with the support of Amanda and Stacy, we're spinning our wheels. We need to put people on the ground, see what actually happened, see what could be the result of this. Because this is very real, and that is very real. And that is a life-changing experience that I think every college in America, and I know Bruce Pearl went to Israel last year. Well, don't go to Israel, Bruce. Go to Auschwitz. You know, John Shire. John, take your team, take your Duke Blue Devils to Auschwitz. Golden, who's the coach at Florida, take your team to Auschwitz. That's just a thought from someone who's been there and knows what happens.
No better way to end than that. Thank you, Coach McKillop. Thank you, everybody else, for being here tonight, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.